Welcome to Coastside Poetry. Thanks to those of you who've zoomed in and those who are watching on YouTube. We meet virtually on the second Tuesday of every month to celebrate spoken poetry. I'm Sandy Onfong, and Steve Long and I are your hosts this evening. Our featured poet event is being recorded and streamed live onto YouTube as we speak. So anyone can look at it later. We'll be posting the link on our website, www.coastsidepoetry.org. This evening, we welcome our featured David J. Rothman. When young, David J. Rothman had the good fortune to study with Czeslaw Milosz, Derek Walcott, Seamus Heaney, Mark Strand, and Robert Fitzgerald. His most recent poetry book is My Brother's Keeper, from Lithic Press, 2019, a finalist for the Colorado Book Award in Poetry. Over the past 40 years, David's poems and essays have appeared in Agni, Appalachia, The Atlantic, the Gettysburg Review, Hudson Review, the Journal, Kenyon Review, Poetry, and the Sewanee Review, and Threepenny Review, and scores of other newspapers, magazines, and journals. In 2019, he won a Pushcart Prize for the poem Kernels, which originally appeared in the new Criterion. In 2024, David won the Chamberlain Lifetime Achievement Award for Poetry in Colorado. Please welcome David Rothman.
Thank you, Sandy. And thanks also to Steve and Diane for setting this up. I am honored to be here at this, participating in this wonderful series. Thanks to all of you for being here as well. I look forward to hearing your work later. Stroking out. Stroking out. It takes a while. First, speech slurs, but you can still write. Then the writing goes, but you can still convey a yes or no by squeezing someone's hand. Then that goes, and there is a frantic motion, the eyes open, but it seems unseeing, though there's still a sense of need, a final urge for dignity, not to wet the bed. Then at last, all motion ceases, but for Chain Stokes' breathing. And during this time, doctors say the mind stays clear. I held her in that final night, sleeping together one last time, drifting under the quiet, watchful care of friends, accompanying her as far as I could go, spooning at death's door, my face buried in her hair one last time, holding the woman whose body had given both of us so much before it was consigned to the flames. What to believe? Her mother says she was a happy child, always singing in her crib. When she was 3, she had red roses she prized. She smiled a lot. She learned chords on the ukulele. She could draw. Took piano, but made fun of her old teacher who would fall asleep in lessons. Always there was dance, not fun, but beautiful and hard and sweet and deep. Well, all that's done. And what does it all mean? There will be no monument, not even any grave, nothing that can be seen. There are only things we can. Her mother kisses her, turns out the light. Later, she hears her daughter singing in the night. A reminder. She made life in her body, and it came into the world. First, Jacob, after gripping hours of hard labor, reaching for his name, transverse and wrapped umbilically, dripping celestial cheese and gasping blue for air, up into good apgars when cut from her. Then, after 7 years of secondary infertility, Big Noah, sure of himself from the start and reaching to the nipple the way memory calls out to love, reminding me of what is true and beautiful and good, beyond all doubt, beyond her life and mine, beyond our death, embodied in each sudden, sweet first breath. King Opa. This poem has an epigraph from the great art historian Oleg Grabov. In the end, cuisine is the most tragic of all the arts, for the only way to enjoy it is to destroy it. King Opa. King Opa, moonfish, Lamprus regius, I hope your life, before drifting solo up some immense Pacific seamount in search of squid or other of your own nourishment, you were hooked by a curious entrepreneurial longline, was as good as the dark, dense orange steak the expert butcher cut from behind your head suggested it must have been. That your silver flanks, that your steely dark blue dorsal skin or scales sporting irregular rows of big white spots, and your orange or crimson fins, all navigated midnights of fantastic bathy pelagic spawning, that your large eyes circled with gold, vermilion jawline, and the thick, rich, oily fat beneath your 200-pound iridescence quivered with sweet salt as you conducted your pectoral fins through oceanodromous wanderings so rarely seen. Harmless to us, as squid were harmless to you. You took the bait the way we take the bait of living. A few hours before I seared 2 pounds of you at dusk, working carefully above a small, glowing pyramid of charcoal to make a dinner for my young family as breakers murmured in the sandy distance and breezes rustled the palms above your vanishing. Through you, with you, came your life and other life and more than life, reality and your unsheathing from it into a greater wilderness, all held on the palate for a moment, lingering for an hour, the way words linger. Unmarked by any stone, forgotten unless I make these words as strong as stone, and then eventually forgotten anyways, in the way everything will be forgotten, even stones. Oh, Opa, that I nonetheless remember. You haunt me with the possibility of joy. No, the reality of vitality. And I thank you. I thanked you then, and thank you now. Loving, if not worshiping, everything you were then and now are not. Oh, Opa, deep, quiet, darker than midnight, secret, illuminated, open, succulent, destroyed in joy by art, now merely a ghost or part of memory. Listen, the embers on the beach were flickering back at the stars, and my wife and our sons and I were laughing and talking and praising bread and wine and you, and enjoying the ocean whispers and each other and the night. It seemed to go on forever, as a diamond might, but warm, a loving, mortal crystal, flickering, flickering. Opa, oh, King Opa, thank you, thank you, thank you. An endless list. The way you held a wine glass with such dancer grace. The birthmark on your back, a death sentence. Your middle name, desire. The cancer in your brain. Your love of sleep. My breath upon your knee. The indescribable smell of your hair. The anger at your food. Your farewell to our sons. The notebooks full of sorrows, longings, hopes. Your attitude turn. Sheesh. Your total lack of talent with a joke. Your love of beach and mountaintop and flowers, chocolate, shoes, the random smoke, your yoga, atheism. Please, God, stop. It is an endless list. I can't go on. There are no verbs. All gone, all gone, all gone. The last time. For those of you who know something about medicine and cancer treatment, G-knife here refers to gamma knife, which is a non-surgical stereotactic radiosurgical procedure to remove brain metastases. The last time. After the surgeries beyond the bone to take sick lymph nodes. After septic shock from flu caught while on high-dose prednisone that she took to turn off the doomsday clock of her own supercharged immunity, which had ramped up on ipilimumab and Keytruda. After the Christmas tree lights of brain mets were cut by G-knife jab. After she healed 3 broken lumbars from the seizure wreck. After her bloody nose flowed like water. After a huge sum of anguish, far more than this poem shows, she turned to me one night and said, sweetly, I feel okay. Come here, make love to me. Unforgettable. Let me forget all that reminds me of the shoes, heels worn down the way your gait would wear them, the photos, rings pledged with love, the documents from your dissolved estate, our wedding chime, sons, notes to yourself, the boxes, stones and shells that you collected, the old ski gear, the stylish belts, the shelf of jewelry that you carefully selected with instructions to give it to friends. And let me soon forget the sound of your low voice when you said, after my life ends, I hope you wait a while, but then live your life. Find another, live. If I forget all that, will you return, my wife? But if I don't, who will? But if I don't, who will? Not good enough. Not wild enough. Not sweet enough. Not long enough. Not strong enough. Not wise enough, and no chance to repeat. Not quite enough. Not smooth enough, not rough enough, not yes enough, not no enough, not big enough, not small enough, not fast enough. There's not enough space for this love, and not enough time now or in the past. You think you know what's coming, but you don't. People are more important than us. You think you will remember, but you won't. Not real enough, not pure enough. These words aren't even false enough or true enough. And now you're gone. They are not you. Some other time. Look, I know the world is filled with shit. Torrents of suffering and fear and rage. I am not blind and not an idiot. I know that history stains every page. I see the gleaming shards and hear the laughs of late night television's cynicism. I daily read the ugly paragraphs that proffer hate wrapped in a witticism. I know that missiles and brutality are being dreamed up and constructed now, right now. And this is the reality to which it often seems that love must bow. Yes, the dark brims over, crime by crime. But I will write of that some of it. Nothing like the sun. My mistress' eyes are nothing like the sun. Coral is far more red than her lips red. If snow be white, why then her breasts are dumb. If hairs be wires, black wires grow on her head. I have seen roses damasked, red and white, but no such roses see I in her cheeks. And in some perfumes is there more delight than in the breath that from my mistress reeks. I love to hear her speak, yet well I know that music hath a far more pleasing sound. I grant I never saw a goddess go. My mistress, when she walks, treads on the ground. And yet, by heaven, I think my love is rare, as any sheep, the live, false. Will. M's eyes were nothing like the sun. They were little, sort of close together. She sometimes didn't know how to have fun. One breast was slightly larger than the other. Her ears were rather big, her singing squeaky. She had a birthmark on her back that killed her. When she got sick, sometimes her bowels were leaky. Sometimes depression, rage, and worry filled her. I had some mistresses whose love was true. I loved them back. They eased my pain. I did. Of course, they had their flaws and virtues too. We crafted pacts to ease each other's cares. But I knew Em and loved her in her lengthy distress more deeply than either of us loved any distress. Her orgasms burned brightly as the sun, and she turned heads like tops when dressed in red, though she could also do it dressed in dun. A ballerina, she could turn her head so gracefully she'd stop your breath. The white lies that she told just made me laugh. Her cheeks weren't roses, but when flushed, conveyed delight at climbing high to swim in mountain creeks. A spouse's faults aren't difficult to know. After 20 years, even the sound of your beloved's voice can make you go insane and want to hide deep underground. Yet I loved her. She was unique, not rare. I can describe, but I cannot compare. One time, just after our first son was born and we were living in an apartment in our new mountain home, her t-shirt torn to make the nursing easier, she went to put him down, then turned to me and said, "Just look at him. That boy is beautiful. He's perfect." And right then above his bed, both of her breasts, flawless, enormous, full of life, went off like tugboat fire hoses in New York Harbor on 4th of July. Those breasts may have been done, but keep your roses. Give me my proud, strong wife, whose milk could fly out of her splendid nipples across a room. What a woman. What a rare perfume. When we lived in New York, we'd often get a bottle of cheap Chardonnay, some cheese, and hit the roof to watch the red sun set. Burning through our endless youth, we'd please each other with the day's news and a kiss, then head back down to make ourselves some dinner. It's just such imperfections that you miss. Chipped glasses, well-used pan, cracked salad spinner. A good way to set out on married life. There were days we needed nothing but each other. I her husband, she my wife. Simple delights here on the ground are what we taught each other at our best and learned to savor while our infinite youth burned. A few years earlier, after a date, Madison Square Garden, Grateful Dead, September 24, 1988. Happy arm in arm and elevated, we didn't look behind as we stepped through the gate to the courtyard of M's downtown apartment, and some guy slipped in there too. We heard the steps, and when we turned around, hand in a jacket pocket, he said, "Hey, I've got a gun. Give me your wallets now." We did. Then he said, "Take me to your ATM." We did. And as I wondered how, my wild girl grabbed a trash can bottle and then smashed it on his head. No gun. He ran. Well, that's all done, and now she's gone. But when she tread the ground, she also danced. I see with Orphic eye her final gig downtown, moving at last so unself-consciously. 4 months pregnant with Jake, starting a show, glowing with life and art, and telling me later that night, at last she had let go. How nourishing our son had set her free. She said, "There's nothing I can do about this," and then laughed as she put both hands on her belly. I mean, now I have no doubt. I'm fat. I have to be. My fear is gone. I grant I never saw a goddess go, but such mortality. No more. And then we left the city, moving high into the Colorado mountains, where bears roam, coyotes howl, and eagles fly. They really do. In crystal alpine air. We climbed peaks, worked hard, skied as if obsessed. Wait, we were obsessed. Raised kids, made friends, and lived the life we both agreed was best. We really did, not realizing life ends too soon sometimes. Though, who does in the thick of things? The snow was deep, wild roses bloomed, the rivers ran, and our delight thrived quick in perfect sunshine and when big storms boom. The beauty of that place could fill your heart. Imperfect in it, it filled ours. Don't start with me about all the mistakes we made. Fuck's sake. The reason that you know about them in the first place is because I've named them here. I know, and that's the point. Without escaping to that climate, making errors, imperfections burning hot in us, how could we have somehow met the terrors that waited in her skin? Perfidious. She lived her life, and so much was so good. I could tell 1,000 stories, but 100 will just have to do. I would now like you to imagine I have shut the door and we are kissing on our bed. Avert your eyes. It is unseemly. She is dead. But fuck that. Be brave, Orpheus. When I founded the music festival in Crested Butte, Charles brought big names out from the Met who sounded like big names from the Met. Josi fan tutte in a converted bus barn with a full orchestra. Check. Jazz, chamber music, dance, all on a shoestring. It was beautiful. Poetry, song, bluegrass, pure romance. Rehearsal space was tight, so we arranged for Cosi singers to rehearse with piano in our living room. It was deranged, a bliss of bass, tenor, alto, soprano. That pleasing music went straight to my head. I shut the door, kissed on the bed. Then there was the time, her folks in town, we were at Larry's for a party after some event, the weather calming down after a cell blew through, good friends, sweet laughter, and I just knew that it would happen. So I sat down at the piano as the sun came out and played Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And beside me, and she sang. What fun that was. No, more, a blessing and a gift, as if right there we built a bridge from art to life. Our song helping that rainbow lift itself into our lives. We played our part when at our best to live as lovers should, just like the cloud-born covenant. And it was good. My mistress' eyes were nothing like the sun when she lay puking on the bathroom tile, smeared with her own vomit, skin gone done as she slipped into organ failure, defiled by unopposed bacteria that filled her. Tumors swelled her lymph nodes, then her brain. Black hairs grew from her, the birthmark that would kill her. And that hard night, she reeked of death and pain. You want the unidealized truth? I know it, and am not afraid to say what it looks like. Look, look, this is real life, and I will show it. All of it, no matter where you strike. I loved her true, I loved her false. You tried, but fuck you, death. Love will not be denied. My mistress' eyes were nothing like the sun. Coral was far more red than her lips red. If snow be white, why then her breasts were done. If hairs be wires, brown wires grew on her head. I've seen red roses photoshopped and white, but no such roses saw I in her cheeks. And in all perfumes is there more delight than in the breath that from my mistress reeked. I loved to hear her speak, yet well I knew that music has a far more pleasing sound. A dancer, she walked as goddesses do, though I'll admit she did walk on the ground. And yet by heaven, I thought my love as rare as any sheep allied with false compare. A brilliance takes up residence in flaws, small details matter, and I'll make them live if it's the last damn thing I do. The laws of life make clear that's what life has to give. You can't live in a land of make-believe. Well, maybe for a while, but it won't work. Pain is real. People die. They leave. And guess what? Even you can be a jerk. There's so much more to say that can't be said. There's nothing I can say that is enough. What's done is done. Gone, gone. Lost, lost. Dead, dead. The days are what they were, however rough. And yet, by heaven, I swear the love we made was perfect in its flaws, and it will never fade. Last poem. Thank you very much. When these words shed their meaning and their sense, because the language changes so much that they lose all living weight and relevance. When Republican and Democrat matter no more than Guelph and Ghibelline, because the controversies of the day have turned to dust. When even our obscene and horrifying wars have gone the way of mice. When our small star explodes and burns the planet to a crisp. When the entire cosmos collapses to an unreal point where matter, time, and energy expire. Even when all that happens, this will still be true. I loved a woman, and sometimes she loved me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, David. That was was so many things. And I invite everyone to unmute if you'd like to comment to David.
Thank you so much. Those were intense, and being a retired nurse and being around all of that, man, you know, seeing it from an observer versus having your own beloved go through that, you know, wow. It's really, really intense, beautiful work.
Thank you, Shauna.
Yeah. I love the way you wove humor through the darkest, hardest parts and so powerfully.
Thank you, Sandra. I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has them.
How long ago did she die, David?
October 14th, 2020. So almost 4 years. In fact, yesterday would have been her 60th birthday, and the day before that would have been our 33rd wedding anniversary.
Ah, okay. And did you start writing these right away, or have they been taking time?
I wrote a few while she was sick.
Yeah.
that I didn't read any of those tonight. There are some in the manuscript.
Mhm.
And then ever since then.
Yeah, yeah, I really get it. I worked for a long time as a end of life counselor, and sort of
Well
like
then.
Shauna, I appreciate you putting the details and not shying away. I think it helps all of us, and the work is really lovely. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nancy.
I thought it was particularly brave writing, and I appreciated it for that reason, as well as for its technical excellence. I lost my wife, Pat, to a hemorrhaged brain tumor, supposedly benign, almost 19 years ago now. And it does get easier, but it never goes away. And your work took me back to the experience of watching a loved one die, and yet it took me back in a positive way, if I dare say that. It reminded me that my suffering is not unique, and that people who have to go through such things do come out of it stronger, and come out of it, even if they never meet, in some sense, come out of it together. Thank you so much.
Well, Bob, thank you. And thank you. May your wife's memory be a blessing.
Thank you.
Well, I too have been widowed a long time, over 25 years now. And I agree with Bob. It does not go away. It shifts, though. It does shift over time. So it's
My feeling, I have a poem in there called something like "Moving On," and which I say, yeah, I hate it when people say that. I don't.
Right.
There's no moving on, but there is integration, right? At a certain point, if you do some work, you can integrate what has happened in a conscious way into your life and carry on.
the interesting thing to me is you use the word death, and I'm very grateful for that, because the thing that drove me nuts was how people talked about people passing on.
Mhm.
And I thought, they're not getting on a ship and sailing down the river.
No, indeed.
And there's always some little thing that bugs you, and it's that was it for me. When people would say, when did he pass? Like it was, gas.
I need to respond to that, I think, Aline.
Go ahead, Bob. We've dueled on this before, I think.
The night that my wife passed away, after having been comatose for a year and a half, it was pouring and I had a very bad cold, so I didn't go to the hospital. And at about 9:35 that evening, I got a call, and it was not her regular doctor, but it was the doctor who was on duty that night, whom I had met. And he said, "Mr. Smith, I'm Dr. So-and-so, I don't remember his name, and I'm calling to say that your wife coded."
Ooh.
And we spent about 15 minutes trying to revive her, but we were not able to. And I knew what he meant, but I couldn't afford to get that wrong. So I said, "Are you telling me she died?" And he paused for a moment and he said, "She's passed away, yes." And I remember, even at the moment of grief, thinking that it was just weird. The man did not want to use the word death. I mean, it was obvious he didn't.
Yep. Yeah, I've hit this many times.
Yeah.
Well, thank
Okay,
you all.
Sandra, you're ready for us to stop
Thank
talking
you all
about
for your
this?
comments. And Dave, thank you so much.
I'm
Again,
honored.
it was a beautiful reading. We're equally honored. We'll stop recording in a moment. Those of you in the Zoom room, please stay online if you'd like to take part in the open mic. Thanks to all our YouTube listeners. Please tune in for our next regular Coastside Poetry event on Tuesday, October 8th, when we'll welcome our own Dan Williams. That will be wonderful. Thanks so much for joining us at Coastside Poetry and for helping to keep the lamps of poetry burning.